My message to Jews and Muslims is well, why would they listen to me? I do have enough self-awareness to ask myself this question. Why don't I have a message to... Well, obviously I do have a message to Christians, but I think they already know what my message to them is, which is for them to give up their idolatry and blasphemy after nearly 1700 years. What prevents them from giving it up? It's not that they really believe that Jesus is God, it's just that their pride can't take it. They can't accept that Christianity is made up by the Romans. They either cannot bear to accept it or accepted it a long time ago. I'm talking to, I'm not talking to Christians. I'm talking to the post-Christian. I don't think there are real people who believe that Jesus is God. I know there are people claiming that that is what they believe, but I don't think deep down they really believe that. And what is the role of Jews and Muslims? You have to ask yourself really when you are promoting a theocracy as I am, why things are as they are. So in the West, we know Christianity is kaput, and we know this because liberalism is definitely kaput, and we fear for the future because we don't know what laws our corrupt and incompetent politicians are going to pass, while pretending to care about us when in fact they don't give a damn, or even worse, they do not know what is in their best interest. So if they can't look after themselves, then what hope have we that they are in fact governing in the national interest and doing things that need to be done instead of doing the opposite? It's obvious to me that liberalism is for losers, for people who don't know how to read the writing on the wall. The writing on the wall is that liberalism is for losers after Christianity is kaput. And therefore the next step must be, if a benign God exists, that the cure is there before the disease. And the disease is the collapse of Christianity, its replacement by liberalism, and the failure too of liberalism. It's very simple really, and I don't see how anyone can deny that. But today I sense that Muslims don't completely understand me. Those I've interacted with seem to want me to become Muslim, which is actually a bad idea in their own terms, because I would be more useful to Muslims as a non-Muslim than just another Muslim whining about Sharia. It is better for Muslims to acknowledge me as a non-Muslim political scientist and a moral philosopher, saying that my findings support their dawah to the post-Christian Westerner who is utterly at sea. Today has been the last 2 days have been 2 days of apparently tumultuous news on the from the alt-right. There was the kind of kiss and tell, a video by Lauren Southern complaining about, the lack of honour amongst the political activists who tell lies. Milo has been known to tell lies, according to Lauren Southern, and that he's an egotistical narcissist. The others lied too. She had an affair with Paul Joseph Watson. Or she didn't, or she nearly did, and she rejected him, and he's just been angry with her ever since. So I don't think she's going to go back into politics. It'll be just one big show and tell, kiss and tell video, and none of it is particularly surprising. After all, we already knew that people who complain about corruption often corrupt themselves. So what a video said was that they were constantly lying about each other, blackmailing each other, telling lies about each other, threatening to tell lies about each other in the most unnecessary and perverse way. And you can see, in contrast, you can see the contrast between the dissident right, who have no sense of honour towards each other at all, to Jews and Muslims. It is not unknown for Jews and Muslims to backstab each other, but they have rules that tell them they mustn't. So I imagine that they do it less than the anti-Semites and Islamophobes complaining about them. And because Jews and Muslims have not done what they were supposed to do, in a way, Muslims have also been chosen by God to tell Christians off, and they don't do it either. So everyone's afraid of these of the Christian overlords of these Jews and Muslims, and they won't say the necessary thing for the penny to drop, which is that Christianity is idolatry. I know when you talk about this sort of thing, you draw a blank, nobody cares. Most Westerners think idolatry is something, quaint people in exotic locations do. It's not something they associate with their Christian ancestors. And this is the sweet spot where Jews and Muslims, if they want to do what they need to do, which is challenge the idolatry and blasphemy of Christianity, if only to earn brownie points with God. But I don't think they even believe in God, or they would be, keener than me to point out the idolatry of Christianity. But they shouldn't fear, I'm doing it on their behalves. It makes me laugh thinking of all these Jews and all these Muslims who believe in God and the fact that is it a fact? He's supposed to reward good and evil in this life and the next. Of these Muslims, they don't say anything. They didn't say anything about the idolatry of Christianity, which they must already know. That the white indigenous people of the West don't believe in. They don't believe in any of that. They only pretend to. And so it is necessary for me to keep repeating my message that Christianity is idolatry, and Jews and Muslims are being punished for not pointing this out to them earlier. So Jews were there before Christians, and Jews have never really been able. They were never in a position to tell these Christians off because they lived in Christian countries and they didn't want to be told to move. And even when they had Israel, when they acquired Israel, they knew that it could only be kept a Jewish state by the Americans. And if America were to suddenly pull out, then it will fall back immediately to the Muslims. Just imagine if America, for any reason, said, well, we'll have to stop funding you militarily. We'll have to... I don't know, I'm sure they help the military of Israel in some way, in equipment or whatever, but if America shuffled off, they would only be left with their own resources. And their mental resources may tell them that, well, if we followed Sharia, our neighbours would leave us alone, and then we'd be all right again. And what's wrong with Sharia? They might ask themselves that. What's wrong with Sharia if I can interpret it? If we, Jewish lawyers in Israel, can interpret the Quran for themselves. So my message to Jews and Muslims is that, well, they ought to be ashamed of themselves, leaving the job to me. It seems deeply ironic that I'm doing their job that they refuse to do, that God had chosen them to do. For some reason, that they're happy to pretend that it doesn't need to be done. And these Muslims too, they're no better. They complain about Jews lording it over them, conspiring with Christians to steal their land or whatever. But really, they're being punished too for disobeying God's laws. And I keep telling them it's chapter 18 verse 4, and this is another thing. I've got 3 pennies that I'm pushing very hard to make them drop, and they won't drop because for some reason they are none so blind as those who will not see, nor those so deaf as those who will not hear. I wonder why Christine Ramsey thinks I've invented the Abrahamic God. Of course I haven't invented him. He was there, well, at the beginning of the universe. Yayo Mama says my message sucks. What do you think is my message? And why does it suck? Do you have a better message, Yo Mama? Gosh, 15 minutes, and I'm feeling quite sleepy already, and there's hardly anybody to interact with. So to sum up, my message to Jews and Muslims is I'm doing what they're supposed to be doing, and they ought to be ashamed of themselves. Not telling their Christian overlords that Christianity is idolatry and blasphemy. And if Jews, Christians and Muslims feel that they are somehow being singled out for punishment, I put it to them that their punishment is, of course, related to their sin of disobedience. And that's all I want to say on the matter. I don't want to go on too long, and I think you've got the message.